Yo, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the first ever in-game Wonderlands video here on the channel. I was fortunate enough to have been given access to a special preview event of the game, and in this we were able to access two of the characters, STABBOMANCER and Graveborn, on one of the maps, and just go ahead and play through a main mission or two and a couple side missions and just kind of explore around the map. So before getting access to this, I had always planned on playing STABBOMANCER here on the channel as our main character, so I thought this was a perfect opportunity to go through the skill tree and exactly how this character works for you guys. Also, I wanted to take this opportunity to ask you guys if there were any sort of questions you'd like me to try to answer in a follow-up video about the game. Like I said, we only had access to the one map and the two characters, so there's only so much I can answer, but I'd be happy to try to answer anything you guys have for me. So make sure you let me know in the comments down below. But let's go ahead and jump into the skill tree. So first off, with all characters, they have a class feat. This is basically a class-specific passive that they're going to get an advantage to. So basically, the STABBOMANCER, he is all about critical hit chance. So this Fate Maker is going to get their critical hit chance increased by 30%. So in this game, critical hits actually work a little bit different. So every single character has a base critical hit chance of 5%. And this is going to go for guns, spells, melees, even your elemental dots. They all have that 5% chance to crit, even if you don't hit them in a crit spot. So the guns, you can still hit somebody in the head and it'll count as a crit, but you can shoot them in the big toe, and if that critical hit chance procs, it will be the same as hitting them in the head. So this is really nice, and this is what the STABBOMANCER is going to get an advantage to. Now, it is not updated on our hero stats, but the 30% is not like additive to that 35%, so it's not like 35%. It is 30% more of that 5%. So it's really not that much better out of the gate than the other characters, but it is still going to be the focus of the STABBOMANCER. Now, the hero stats is something else that is included with the skill trees. So as you guys get your skill points, you're also going to be gaining hero points. Down on the bottom left, you guys can see I have 8 available of each, and obviously the skill points will work exactly like they have in other games, but these 8 hero points, we can go ahead and spend them in any of these categories and move them up so we can boost our crit damage, crit chance, our spell cooldowns, our status damage, our max health, and wards, which is our shields in this game. You can boost those, and then also our action skill cooldowns. Now let's go ahead and start taking a look at our action skills. So every character has 2 action skills. You can only select one at a time, and in the case of the STABBOMANCER here, we're going to have Ghost Blade and also From the Shadows. So Ghost Blade, you're going to actually throw out a Ghost Blade, which is going to spin in place kind of like a top, and it's going to deal melee damage, and it's going to be based on your melee weapon. So whatever melee weapon you have equipped will affect like the element of it, also how fast it attacks, and the amount of damage it does. So also, while the Ghost Blade is out, you can actually move it around if you hit your action skill button again. This will use up some of the duration. As we can see, it uses 5% of our max duration every time we move it around, but it is really nice for moving it to different groups of enemies as we go along. But otherwise, it's going to deal 75% of our melee weapons damage. Also, the frequency of its attacks will be the same as your melee weapon, so faster hitting melee weapons will hit more with Ghost Blade. It's going to last for 16 seconds and have a cooldown of 37 seconds. Now, taking a look at the other action skill, From the Shadows, this is a lot like Gorillas in the Mist for Flak in Borderlands 3. So you're going to go ahead and activate Stealth, and you're going to turn invisible. And while you're in this, you're going to get all of your hits as critical hits. So that is your guns, spells, melees, and also all of your dots. All of those are going to be critting on every single tick, but they're going to do reduced damage. They're going to do 25% less damage. And while you're in this mode, it's going to last for 8 seconds, and it has a cooldown of 36 seconds. Now, unfortunately, we weren't able to save quit at all. Anytime we quit out of the game, we'd lose all progress. So I do not have the skill tree completed at the time of explaining this skill tree, but I had unlocked it all so you guys can see how many points go in which skill. I'll have that up on the screen right now. But taking a look at the first tier of skills, we're going to have 3, and that is Arsenal, Haste, and also Potent Poisons. So Arsenal is just going to be an increase to our melee, spell, and gun damages. Pretty simple. And then Haste is going to increase our melee attack speed and movement speed. These effects are going to double after you cast a spell, so you can start moving really quick and also attacking really quick. And then Potent Poisons, it's going to increase your status effect damage and duration. I found status effects to be really good in this game so far, so I'm excited to see how this plays out in endgame. But moving on down to the second tier of skills, we're going to have the skills Follow Up, Swift Death, and also Exploit Their Weakness. So Follow Up, whenever you deal gun damage to an enemy, your next melee attack will deal increased damage, and this is going to stack up to 10 times, so 10 shots, you're going to get that max bonus. Swift Death, whenever you're moving, you're going to deal increased damage, and the faster you move, the greater the bonus. So this is a lot like Violent Momentum, but for all damage. And then Exploit Their Weakness. This is going to make it so when you put a status effect on an enemy, they're going to take increased damage. And this is also unique per status effect. So the more you have on an enemy, the more damage you're going to do to them. So burns, shock dots, corrosive. If you can stack all three, you're going to deal triple the amount. Then on our third tier, we're only going to have 2 skills. We're going to have Nimble Fingers and then also Shadow Step. Shadow Step is just a 1 point and Nimble Fingers is a 3 point. So whenever you deal melee damage, your fire rate and spell damage are increased for a duration. I found this to be very useful. The knife, the Ghost Blade, will actually proc this for you. So when you have that on enemies, all your spells and your fire rate will just constantly be increased for the duration of it, and I found that to be super helpful. And then Shadow Step, whenever you get a kill, your next melee attack is guaranteed to be a critical hit, and that lasts for 6 seconds. So it's not like every hit for those 6 seconds is going to be a critical hit. You just have 6 seconds to activate that melee attack. But now taking a look at these skills, Sneak Attack, Elusive, and Contagion. Sneak Attack is a 5-point skill. Elusive is a 1 point and Contagion is a 3 point skill. But Sneak Attack is pretty simple. It's just going to increase the amount of critical hit damage you deal. And then Elusive, you can now shoot and sprint at the same time. And also you have a chance to evade incoming damage while you're moving. So this is going to help your survivability and keep your damage up with the Swift Death perk. And that is a really nice synergy in there. And then Contagion, whenever you apply a status effect, there's a chance for it to spread to nearby enemies. If no enemies are nearby, apply a different random status effect to the initial enemy instead. This is really great with Exploit Their Weakness because you can get several different status effects on one enemy with no effort. But something to keep in mind, that new status effect damage is only going to be 50% of the applied status effects damage, so it's not going to be quite as potent as that initial one. Now the 5th tier for the STABBOMANCER is pretty darn scary. We're going to have the skills 1000 Cuts and also Alchemical Agent. 1000 Cuts is going to stack 5 times, and then Alchemical Agent is just a 1 point skill. But 1000 Cuts, critical hits grant increased damage dealt for a duration, and then you're going to be able to stack this up to 25 times. Each stack is going to have a duration of 12 seconds, and once you guys get your critical hit chance up with your dots and all of that stuff, it is very easy to get this to times 25, and it is a massive increase to our overall damage dealt, and this skill is really, really good. But Alchemical Agent is also really nice, so your melee critical hits apply a random status effect, and the status effect damage is 10% of your melee damage dealt. So that should be interesting later on. If you guys can get your melee damage really high, you guys will also be able to apply really strong status effects in the process. And now finally, let's go ahead and take a look at the capstone for the STABBOMANCER. That is the 1 point skill Executioner's Blade. So your gun and spell critical hits have a chance to create an ethereal blade above the target that will impale them after a short delay. These blades will deal melee damage based on the Fate Maker's equipped melee weapon, so it's a 20% chance to spawn it, and it's going to deal 100% of your melee weapon's damage. Now, this skill is really awesome, and I'm excited to see how it plays out once we get to endgame with like legendary melee weapons and things like that. I think this skill is just going to be busted, and it also just looks really cool. Now, I thought this was going to be like some giant greatsword falling on the enemy. Now, they have really toned that down. It's just like a tiny little dagger that you can kind of barely see whip around the target, which is really nice for visibility. That was an issue in 3. But it still looks really cool when you guys do see it. So I think this capstone is amazing, and I'm excited to see where it leads in the full game. Yeah, guys, that is our complete STABBOMANCER skill tree. Once again, I will have the full skill tree with all the available points for each skill up on the screen right now. So if you guys are interested in that, there you go. But otherwise, I am so excited to jump into this character and also take it into multi-classing and just pair it with legendaries. I'm so excited for the shenanigans that's going to happen in Wonderlands with the gear that we're going to have. I think it's going to be so, so good. But like I said at the start of the video, if you guys have any sort of questions for me about Wonderlands and my time with the preview event, make sure you let me know in the comments down below. I will be addressing that in a future video here very, very shortly. But yeah, if you're interested in STABBOMANCER builds or just any builds or anything Wonderlands related at all upon the full release of the game, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We're going to have so much content covering this game. But thank you all for watching this far into the video. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. See ya.